Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Now, you guys had a 1 hour extra sleep. So you need to have more energy when we say good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today. It's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure for me because I've been absent for so long. So it's really, really wonderful for Sandra and I to be back. We miss you all. And we start today, November 1st, believe it or not. We're coming close to the end of this year. It's gone by fast. And this month we have a very, very special theme. It's Humberto de Campos.
Idle, they had used the hours of the day meant for labor to commit blameworthy acts. If they had blasphemed God by spilling the blood of their brothers and sisters, by causing problems among families, by ruining those who trusted them, by abusing the innocent, or by indulging in all the ignominies of humanity, what would have become of them? Would it be enough for them to have said at the last hour, "Sir, we have used our time badly. Use us until the end of the day, so that we may do a little, although it will be very little of our part, but give us the wages of a worker of goodwill"? No, no. The master would have said to them, "I do not have any work for you right now. You have squandered your time. You have forgotten what you have learned, and you no longer know how to work in my vineyard. Therefore, begin to learn once more. And when you are more willing, come to me, and I will open my vast field to you, where you'll be able to work at all hours of the day." Good Spiritists, my dearly beloved, you are all workers of the last hour. The one who says, "I began work at daybreak and I will finish only at nightfall," would be very proud. You all came when you were called, some a little earlier, some a little later. To the incarnation whose shackles you bear, however, for how many centuries has the Lord been calling you to his vineyard without you wanting to enter it? Now it is time for you to receive your wages. Employ the time you have remaining well, and never forget that your existence, no matter how long it may seem to you, is only a fleeting instant in the immensity of time comprising eternity for you. It's Constantine, a Protector Spirit, Bordeaux, 1863.
So let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to God, our Creator, to Jesus, our Master of Love, our guiding light. And we want to say thank you. Thank you for coming here today to open our eyes, our minds, and our hearts and our spirits to the lessons that are going to be given to us. We want to thank God for this opportunity that is given to us during our busy week, that we take a few hours to open our spirits to the lessons. And we feel blessed and joy. We ask Jesus and the spirits present here today to bless Marcio, our speaker, giving him the clarity of mind and the harmony in his spirit. Be with us, and so be it. Marcinho.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here again. I promise I will not talk too much like the last time. Let's lunch and learn. This lecture was a challenge for me, a real challenge, because I didn't know anything about Humberto de Campos. I delayed my decision to do this lecture until the last minute, when I had to come and do it. But it was great. It was great. I learned a lot, and I hope I can share a little bit with you guys from what I learned from there. Okay, so the lecture will be about the man and the spirit. It's funny because different from other spirits that we know, right? Like Emmanuel or Andrea Luiz or Joana de Angelis. We know a lot about those spirits and what they told us about them, right? And then we could research a little bit about their incarnations, etc. But Humberto de Campos, he just incarnated recently, and everybody in Brazil, well, at that time, people who we used to read and very literary people know him, and it's very easy to find information and even books that he wrote in his incarnation as Humberto de Campos. So it's nice to see a spirit that came and brought so many books, as you're gonna see, for Chico Xavier, and at the same time we know him as a man. We can see books from him as a man as well. So that's what we're gonna talk a little bit about, the man and the spirit. And at the end, I also brought one lesson that he brought in one of his books through from mediumship from Chico Xavier, and we're gonna discuss a little bit about that as well. Okay, so let's start with the man. Humberto de Campos, he's born in October 25th, 1886 in Miritiba. Miritiba was a very small city that later was named Humberto de Campos, and it was in December 13, 1934, right? Humberto de Campos was still is the most famous person from that city, so they renamed the city in his name. And he was born in a very poor family. His parents, Joaquim Gomes de Faria Veras e Ana de Campos Veras, was a very humble and very simple people, very poor. And his father was a tradesman, so he has a little store there in this small city. And he disincarnated when Humberto de Campos was only 6 years old. So from the very, when he disincarnated, his father disincarnated, Humberto de Campos moved to another city, São Luís, still in the state of Maranhão. And there he started to work, trying to survive somehow, right? We, I don't know how many here know Brazil, most of them probably, that it's very common there, when in the past, or sometimes even today, little kids start to work to help their families, bring some money and food for the family. So he started working in a very young age, and he was very poor at that time, so he had to help his family, and he tried to follow the same path of his father to become a tradesman. But when he was 17 years old, he moved again. They say in all the different materials that I find out about Humberto de Campos, it says that he moved to Pará. But Pará is the entire state, right? It's not a specific city. So I assumed it was Belém, the most important one, right? And I put that just that we have a reference where he probably went. It was Belém, right? Okay, thank you. And there he started to work as a journalist with 17 years old only, as a journalist at Folha do Norte and na província do Pará, two well-known newspapers there in Pará, in Belém, and he worked there when he was only 17. And then he moved to Rio de Janeiro 2 years later, and but before that, he moved 2 years later to Rio de Janeiro, where at that time was the capital for Brazil. So the president, everything, was there in Rio de Janeiro. Brasilia, which is today the capital, didn't exist at that time yet. So Rio de Janeiro was, the main city in Brazil. And when he was only 24 years old in 1910, he published his first book. It was a book with verses, with poems, and named it Poeira. Right? So he was just 24 years old. And when he moved to Rio de Janeiro, this is all pictures that I could find on the internet from our dear friend Humberto de Campos. But he became friend with good people, very very well-known Brazilian writers like Olavo Bilac, Coelho Neto, Emílio de Menezes. And you see that I have to read it because this is something totally new for me. I was not a very didn't like that subject that much. But anyhow, he started to be friend of these guys that were very well known in Brazil at that time. And he also, when he moved to Rio de Janeiro, he started to work in a newspaper there named O Imparcial. And there he met other very well-known writers like Rui Barbosa, José Veríssimo, Vicente de Carvalho, João Ribeiro. And working in these newspapers, writing a lot, and many other things that he was doing, he became well known as his chronicles published in the Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo, the two main cities at that time, and other capitals around Brazil. And it's funny that he started to use many different pseudonyms. Call it a pseudonym. Pseudonym.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it, right? Pen name?
Pen name.
Pen name. Okay. And one of them was Conselheiro XX. You know, I thought it was very interesting, this one, and he used it a lot. And you're gonna see the connect. You know, we're gonna talk about this later. But continue about the man. Here is a list of books and different, types of books that he wrote. In total, it's more than 30 books published between 1910 and 1954. You can see that some of them was after his disincarnation, and the last one, Diário Secreto, was his memories that someone found after he disincarnated, and that book, has kind of secrets from many other people like Olavo Bilac and others, right? So they had it there for they published after his disincarnation. So everything after 1935 here is after his disincarnation. So he left a lot of material that people could continue publishing, right? So in 1919, he entered in the Academia Brasileira de Letras. He is the symbol of that. For those who doesn't know, it's a very well-known organization in Brazil, and I'm sure there's others around the world. It was based, the one in Brazil was based on the same type of structure that they have in France, right? At that time, France was the place for literature, etc. So, and it was formed in 1897 with the objective to really cultivating, bring more understanding about the different books and literature in general in Brazil. So a lot of things that he was writing about was trying to get more freedom, to express what the writers want to talk about, right? It was still a lot of control at that time on what would be published, etc. And he discussed it in his books and chronicles and everything that he was writing in the newspapers, etc., about the human being and social issues, right? And he was also started in the politician, but because of the 1930 revolution that we had there in Brazil, he had to leave the politics and become a normal person again, right? So he continued writing a lot, and he got sick. He got sick for the last few years. I don't remember exactly how many years, but he was sick in the last year of his life. And on those years, he changed a little bit the style of what he was writing, right? He started to receive a lot of letters of different people, with asking for help, asking for consolation. People there that was totally hopeless, right? They didn't have faith in it all anymore, and he started to writing to those people, right? He started doing that, and with a lot of mercy, a lot of compassion, a lot of love. So it was the last years for Humberto de Campos was change a little bit about himself, right? And he was almost blind at that time. He disincarnated in December 5th, 1935. So he was only 48 years old, right? And during a surgery that he was going through. And so although he was loved by a lot of people that was writing to him and reading what he was writing, he was alone. He was living in a small hotel. It's not even a hotel. It's a place. I don't know if we have this in North America, but it's a place where people have one room and they live like together in that. Like in the college, on the university, when you go and you have that. So things like a place like that alone, and he was married. He was married and he has 3 kids. Yes, it's a surprise. It was a surprise for me when there is nothing, absolutely nothing, talking about his family. At least in the source that I look at, right? Nothing talking about his family until the moment that he became a spirit, right? So he just incarnated, as I said, at 40 years old, alone. And that is when Humberto de Campos and Chico Xavier start to talk, let's say. Right? So, and it's interesting because it's just 3 months after his disincarnation that Chico Xavier, I put a image of him, still, Chico Xavier is still young there because he was only 24 years old when they have the first contact. And through Chico, he started to write chronicles, that it's called Chronicles from the Other Side, right? And that, when Chico brought that to FAB, Brazilian Spiritist Federation, and they start to publish all those books, many newspapers start to say, hey, here's Humberto de Campos publishing again, now he's a spirit, and that brought a lot of publicity to Chico Xavier and the Spiritist Federation Brazil. So, imagine someone that people was reading every day, right, in newspapers, in their books, now continue his working through a media. So it was a lot of noise, right? A lot of people talking about it. So it was a chance, it was a great chance for Spiritism. But, as Sandra will talk next week, and that was the moment that I started to learn a little bit more about, not a little, it's almost nothing, it's just tell how many, he was married, he has kids, right, 3 kids, that the family come in the different biographies that I read. So it was only at that moment when the family start to ask for the copyrights of those books that they mentioned about it. So Sandra will talk more about next week, so I really recommend you guys to come next week to learn about that. I will not touch it all that, but it's very interesting, I can guarantee you. So the family start to ask, and we can see, if we go to the next slide, we have all the books. So he has 15 here, we have 14. I will talk a little bit more about one of them. He has 14, and it starts, in the beginning was very humanized type of information that he was bringing to us, right? The way that he was writing and the topics was really like he just disincarnated, right? We don't change like that, right? We know that. So he was still in his transformation, trying to understand what's going on with him, but he started. So in the beginning, we can see a lot of things very similar to what the same style that he was writing while incarnated. And then as he started to understand a little bit more, and those books start to be more maybe we can say spiritualize it, right, type of books. So I highlight a few of them for us to talk about. One of them was Crônicas de Além Túmulo, and it brings a number of Enlightenment chronicles where Humberto de Campos brings us some different aspects like longevity, peace, truth, and justice. And he also brought some information from Socrates, Charles Richer, and 2 apostles on that book, Peter and Judas. So it's very interesting that he started to bring in this book things that he was used to in his letters, in his chronicles, while still incarnated in his last few years, right, incarnated. but now through Chico Xavier, and he bring a little bit more with more things that he probably learned once he disincarnate. Another very interesting book that he brought to us was Brasil, Coração e Pátria do Evangelho, something that we can maybe translate as heart of the world, country, or land of the gospel, right? And in that book, it's very interesting. Unfortunately, all of these books, guys, is in Portuguese. So, but hope someday, very soon, we're gonna get it in English. But it talks it's very interesting to understand how Brazil became this country where Spiritism is so well known, right? So normal. I think that everybody for those who are not Spiritists, probably knew someone that who was, or have someone else in the family. It's very normal, I would say, in Brazil have a Spiritism. Here in Canada, if we say something Spiritism, what is that, right? People look, what? I never heard about it. But it's very common there. So in this book, it talks from the very beginning when Jesus and those spirits that was helping him to bring this new message and then bring it to Brazil, and Brazil became that place to continue disseminating Spiritism, right? So it's very interesting to understand the entire process from the very beginning until the moment that we are right now. And this book, it's talk a lot about the responsibility that Brazil have as a country, and the people that are incarnating there, to continue that and to practice the gospel of Jesus, right? Following those teachings that Allan Kardec put together with the help of all those spirits helping him, right? Another very interesting book is Reportagens do Além Túmulo. I think it's this one. That it's, I think I can translate that as something like reporting from beyond the grave, something like that. And it talks about the individual needs to go towards that perfection, towards the what's gonna happen when we disincarnate, that eternal life that we need to we're gonna face, right? Sooner or later we're gonna face it. There's another life. So he talks about that, and he also bring topics like charity, disease, obsession, the value of work, something that we read today, right? The works of the last minute. So it talks about that, and it talks about Earth as the school, right? I like the description of this book is the Earth as a school, because it keeps saying, we're here to suffer, because expiation, blah blah blah. But it's more a school, a place for us to learn, to evolve, and all the personal effort that we need to put into it. Another one that reading, I couldn't talk about all of them, but another one that I reading all the description of the books, I like it, is Pontos e Contos. That's another book that it's talk about different cases, people incarnated, that very easily we could see ourselves in those situations, right? So in that book, it's one of them when Humberto de Campos, he, instead of signing that as Humberto de Campos, he signed it as Irmão X, or Brother X. So if you remember Conselheiro XX or 20, I thought, wow, X again, why he's passionate about it, right? So it's interesting that he uses something similar, but instead of counselor, he used the term brother, right? As we are all brothers and sisters. It's very interesting that he brought that, and he started to be as we said, he started to be more spiritualized, and the message has been a little bit different. The style of writing a little bit different from when he was incarnated. But back to this book, the Pontos e Contos, it brings you cases of incarnated people, and how these things, how these events of life call our attention to be vigilant in our attitudes, right? Being vigilant on what we do every day, all day long, towards the good, right? So, as I said, all these books, if you speak Portuguese, you can easily get in the in Fab's website. You can read a few initial chapters, so you can have an idea how the progression of this. Some of them are not in Fab website, so this one and the last two, if I'm not wrong, are not part of Fab's books, but it was from Humberto de Campos for Chico Xavier as well. Okay, so continue talking about these books. There's one, I think is the one that almost everyone knows from Humberto de Campos. That's the Boa Nova, and I brought a few things that he wrote in the introduction or the very first part of this, just to illustrate a little bit what I have said about the change on his the way that he was writing. So one of them that they said in the beginning was, I'm the first one to recognize that my themes are not the same. So he realized it. He noticed that he was not talking about the same things, right? It evolved. It brought a little bit more information, let's say. I think we can say that it's a little bit more information with a little bit more understanding, right? And it can be I forgot what I was about to say. The other thing he said is, my current issue is not to write to please, but to write to benefit. I don't know if it's really translated what it means in the book, but what he was trying to say there is that, many times he was writing to make people happy, right? To make people, to help people to sell his books, to sell the newspapers, and now he was writing for those who's looking for something else, right? Looking for a message that can help them to evolve spiritually. And he started to say, I'm now a humble disciple of Jesus. So in this book, and I continue there, from thousands of episodes of the Heaven stories, I was able to gather 30. So he started to learn more about Jesus and Jesus' moral teachings. And in this book, he put 30 different chapters, each one of them a passage of Jesus, and he goes and explains a little bit more. Right, and that is the piece that I think I like the most. It says, the evil man that just arrived from earth found the light being that purified my sanctuary. He, in this case Jesus, sustained my thoughts with his unlimited kindness. So, although he was incarnated and he was a good man, right? He in his last days, he was trying to help people. He was a good man. It's like he didn't understand everything about Jesus, and he now have in the spiritual world more understanding and more connection with Jesus, right? More when I say connection with Jesus is through his teachings. He was probably not had a chance to talk directly to Jesus, I assume. I don't know, but in this level of evolution that we are, probably not, right? But he, as he said, he started to be a disciple of Jesus, and being a disciple of Jesus means that he's starting to preach and teaching and doing what Jesus told us to do, right? And he continued, I have the happiness of the gospel because I recognize that his love does not abandon us. Trusting in his friendly and generously protection, my spirit work and rest. I like this part because he said, my spirit work and rest, trust in Jesus, right? So that's what we should do every day, right? We need to trust Jesus. We need to trust that whatever happened to us, there is a reason why. There is a meaning for that to happen, right? And it continues saying, and it was saying that his love does not abandon us. So trusting Jesus is trusting that he's there. He's there with us. He's not letting us go for a minute. You know, I already heard, maybe I already said that Jesus has something else more important than help me here, right? But he's so good, he's so powerful that he is helping each one of us every single moment. We just need to trust on that. We just need to feel that, you know, and trusting and believing on that is not always easy. And in this book, on chapter 27, it brought us, let me go to the next slide. It brought us a lesson about being vigilant, right? We in Spiritism, we always talk about prayer, it's pray and watch, right? So what that really means. And in this lesson, on chapter 27, it talks about the prayer on the garden, and I didn't take a note here, but it's Matthew, if I'm not wrong, chapter 5, item 26, or maybe chapter 26, item 5, something like that. But you can easily find that in the gospel. So in that was the moment, you know, a night before Jesus got arrested and crucified, right? He went to the foot of the Mount of Olives, and with 3 people, Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee. And Jesus went there to pray for his Father, to pray to God, to help him. You know, he knew what was gonna happen the next day. He was troubled about that, you know. So he went there to pray and seek for God consolation to go through that. And he told Peter and the other 2 to pray and watch for him while he was there praying. And what happened? The 3 guys start to pray, to meditate, and they fall asleep. 1 hour back, Jesus went there and said, "Hey, wake up! What are you doing?" Right? Not with these words for sure, but in very kind way. But and ask them, you know, wake up! I need you guys to watch for me while I'm praying. And he went back to the mount, and they were there again praying and watching. But somehow they fall asleep again. And then Jesus come back and say, you know, guys, how come you guys didn't watch for me? Why that happened, right? And we know everything that happened next, right? He got crucified, etc. But John, one of the kids, he was always troubled about that. And also he has a dream, and this is the part that Humberto de Campos tells us in this chapter 27. And so he was very troubled about that, and Jesus came to him in a very, very sweet, nice dream and told him about a lesson that they should learn on that. And it tells us in this book, in light of this lesson, the disciple of the future will understand that one's march must be solitary, since their relatives and their reliable companions surrender to the sleep of indifference. From now on, learn the need of individual testimony. Never forsake to pray and watch. So, when we hear about pray and watch, you know, it's ourselves. It's doing that ourselves and not always not for the other ones, right? Many times it's for ourselves to pray for us, to watch what we are doing. And of course, we couldn't come to a lecture without Allan Kardec. So there is one question, or two questions, on the Spirit's book that talk about self-knowledge. You know, I'm gonna read here. It's question 919. I'm not reading everything, but I'm gonna read something. It starts saying, "What is the most effective means for improving ourselves in this life and for arresting the draw of evil? A sage of antiquity has told you, know thyself." We comprehend all the wisdom of that maxim, but the difficulty is precisely knowing ourselves. By what means can we do? And the answer is, do what I used to do when I was living on the earth. At the end of each day, I examined my conscience, reviewed what I had done, and asked myself whether or not I had failed to fulfill some duty, and whether or not anyone might have had reason to complain about me. I was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and at seeing what there was in me that need to be reformed. Those who every night would recall all their actions during the day and would ask themselves what good or evil they have done, praying to God and their guardian angels to enlighten them, would acquire great strength for self-improvement, because, believe me, God will assist them. Therefore, ask yourself about what have done and toward what am you acted in a particular circumstance, whether you have done anything that you would blame in others, and whether you have done anything that you would not dare profess. Also ask if it pleased God to call me at this moment to enter the world of spirits, where nothing is hidden. Will I cower before anyone's gaze? Examine what you may have done against God, then against your neighbor, and lastly against yourselves. The answer will be either repose for your conscience or an indication of a wrong that must amend. So the reason why I brought that is because watching for ourselves is really trying to understand what we have done during the day. Don't need to keep thinking about what I have done 5 years ago, right? Start what I have done today, what I could do differently, right? And it's funny because I came with a friend today, and we were talking about past lives, and it has been a recurrent thing in my life where I keep hearing things like why this happened in my previous life is why I'm suffering this now, or always this gonna happen because of that thing, and I keep saying, forget about the past, let's think forward. What I'm doing today to change my future. What happened in the past we cannot change, right? But we can easily change what's gonna happen in the future, and change in the future we need to change now, right? So that for me was a lesson to when praying and watch can mean many different things, right? But watch now has a truly meaning for me. I think it was not always clear what that watch means, right? That's why I'm glad that I did this lecture. I was the one that learned it the most in here. That watch is really watching ourselves. Am I doing what I'm expected to do, right? We have this lesson on the Spirit's book. We have an entire chapter that talk in the Gospel according to Spirit and talk about the perfect and tells about thinking about what we have done, right? So as I said, the books unfortunately are still in Portuguese, and it seems that we have some to sell here or in the
That's just for the members.
The members.
we have in our library if you want. We have some of them here in Portuguese. Yeah, you have a Boa Nova here. You have two of them, you know. I was with one of them.
Vai falando, vai me dando.
Que é?
Vai me dando. Vai falando.
Ah, você quer que eu fale qualquer coisa? Ok. So here's what we have. Reportagens do Além Túmulo, Crônicas de Além Túmulo, Luz Acima, Cartas e Crônicas e Contos desta e de Outra Vida. Okay.
Thank you.
We also have Brasil, Coração do Mundo, Pátria do Evangelho. Must be
Check it out. Okay. All right. So that was what I brought to you guys, and that is the last message that I want to give to you. Is don't forget to watch not what others are doing, but ourselves. Right? It's very easy for us to look to what others are doing, and very hard to look into ourselves. So let's start in doing that. That is that thing. What Spiritism can help us the most, because watching us without judging may be hard, but it's not impossible, right? Looking to us with love, compassion for ourselves. Everything that we say about for others, like love your enemy. You know, we were talking about this Wednesday. You know, love your internal enemy. Sorry, guys. Anymore, it's yeah, our own enemy. You know, the enemy inside of us. Those things that we want to fix, to change, is our enemies, and we need to treat it with love, right? All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know everybody's hungry. I know I am. But before we close off with our final prayer, any questions?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Because I remember when Chico started to psychograph, he wrote Parnaso Além do Túmulo, which is a book where he gathered a lot of messages from different poets and that had died. And he started to write this. And of course, as Marcio mentioned, a lot of people started to say this is a fake, this is not true. And again, it's a matter of understanding and belief, but what I think is very interesting to share is the fact that when they analyzed the content of everything that Chico wrote, I was researching something on Google that they said either Chico is a genius and someone that can replicate many styles in perfection, or there is actually something that's different because he could write in different styles, and it's just information that I thought it's useful to actually bring value, because it might be a question that arises whenever we're saying
Yes.
that.
And it's good that you brought that, because I forgot to mention in when Chico started to psychograph some of these books, some very people that study literary, they analyze the style and say, yeah, it seems to be Humberto de Campos. You know, I don't know if they became Spiritist or not, but maybe that's something. Yeah.
I'll be talking about that next week.
Okay, so good that I didn't talk too much about
But
it.
there is an interesting fact, because he mentioned Parnaso Além Túmulo, is that Humberto de Campos was one of the critics of Parnaso Além Túmulo when he was alive. So it's interesting.
Okay. Thank you, Marcio. I'd just like to leave you with a final thought. Remember that the opening message that Daniel read was around the workers of the...
The last hour.
Yeah, the last hour. Sorry. And you know that nothing that we have seen in terms of mediumship happens overnight or by mistake. It's all very well planned. So think of what you heard about Humberto de Campos. So here is a young man born in a very small town, very poor, no education. He loses his father, he's on his own. And he starts going all around Brazil making a name for himself. Doesn't go to university. Everything that he's learned is self-taught, right? And he becomes an immortal of the Brazilian Academy of Letters at the tender age of 33. So we start to think that he had incredible skills, intelligence, skills around human skills, relationships. He became friends with very sophisticated and intellectuals, and that created his path. And he was able to turn that into a skill to write chronicles. It's not common today, but in Brazil, especially in the 30s, the 40s, even up to the 70s, the guys who wrote chronicles were considered, pop stars, right? Because everyone wanted to read those cute little stories about day to day, about what is going through the world or our lives. So Humberto discarnates. He's not particularly spiritual in that last life. And then within a year, he's dictating books to Chico Xavier, where he now starts to chronicle what? The spiritual world. So he brings that popularity, he brings all of his skills, and he now creates a new kind of channel for Chico to write and connect more and more with individuals, especially the Brazilians, who liked the chronicles, liked to hear. And now there's a new door that was completely open now. And that's where Chico, and we're going to see next week, becomes nationally known. So everything is part of a plan. So think about that, and then think. So I like to. I know everyone wants to go and have lunch. So why don't we just take a couple of minutes, and once again, raise our thoughts to God, our Creator. Thank Him for bringing us together in this lovely day, bring us here in joy, in curiosity, in desire to be with our friends. Thank Him for giving us the gift of intelligence, for us to listen and learn, for us to discover new ideas, discover new paths for us to follow. Let's thank Jesus Christ for His eternal guidance in the path to be followed, and also to the spirits that work in this house, preparing the environment, preparing our speakers, and preparing you to come here and make the most out of this morning. Let's be thankful, and let's go in peace. And I hope to see you again next Sunday. So be it.